story to be heard. Share it on the front porch, America.
Well, it's that time to thank our sponsors, and I'd like to thank them personally because I can't be doing what I'm doing without them. The Fat Boy app, the only locally owned mom and pop restaurant locator. Listen, you're not going to find another one like it. They're out there every day busting their humps, signing up restaurants so you can get the benefits from their app. So go sign up. Go check them out. At least go check them out. Send them a message and say, what are you all about? Go watch the podcast where we interviewed them. If you're not a Fat Boy or Dining Diva, you're missing out, and it's your own fault. That's all I can tell you because I've given you everything you need to know. So go sign up, become a Fat Boy and Dining Diva. Restaurant owners, if you are a locally owned restaurant, sign up for free, right? Get free advertisement. Man, there's so many benefits for you guys as well. Stephen Watson, man, Stephen Watson at Watson's Transmissions. One of the best there is out there doing what he does, and this show is so grateful to have him as a sponsor. So if you need transmission work, reach out to Stephen Watson at Watson's Transmissions. Shane Hackney at Hackney Door Company, buddy, we appreciate you, and we thank you for everything that you're doing, everything that you've been doing, supporting Front Porch America. Again, we're honored to have you on. And if you guys need doors that open, doors that close, doors that don't squeak, or if you got a squeaky door, call Shane. He's going to help you out at Hackney Door Company there in Marion, Kentucky. Billy Perkins at Warwick County Tire, man, thank you for stepping up and helping out the podcast. Listen, they just won an award for being like the best tire place there in Booneville, Indiana. I almost said Booneville, Kentucky. That's Boone Vegas up there in Booneville, Indiana. Warwick County Tire. Go see Billy. He's going to take care of you. Jen's General Store. We love her to death. We love that store. Man, they've been great for the podcast, and they're great for our community. If you haven't been to Jen's, go to Jen's General Store. You're missing out. I'm telling you. I went not too long ago, got me a big old bologna sandwich in an L8, and I need to go. I would like to go every day if I could, but go get you some of that old-timey candy and some of them L8s, and just browse their store. There's something for everybody there at Jen's General Store there in Morganfield, Kentucky. Ironstein Coffee. Jerry and his buddy there at Ironstein Coffee, man, they're roasting them beans. Got the whole town smelling like a fresh cup of coffee. Check them out. They got many different blends. They'll cater to your needs. Reach out to them. Just such an awesome crew to have. Josh Parrish at BHG Realty, man, we can't forget about him for sure. Thank you so much for everything you've done for the podcast. You're out there grinding and moving these properties and getting people their first home, their second home, their 50th home, whatever it is, moving businesses in, getting businesses brought to the area, which is really cool. So, Josh, we thank you at BHG Realty for everything you do for the podcast. Jake Wolf at Wolf Customs, man, we got to thank him. We can't leave him out. So we really appreciate him. If you need an oil change, some mechanic work done, go see Jake there in Waverly, Kentucky. And as always, we'd like to give a special shout out to Shannon French for Lids for Kids and doing what he's doing. Man, they're on their way to 100 kids. Go check out Lids for Kids on Facebook or on the web. They're doing some great and amazing things, and we can't do what we do without you either, Shannon. So thank you. And in the words of the man himself, Shannon French, y'all be kind to one another, and let's get ready for the Front Porch America. And this episode is going to continue on with the episodes that I wanted to do this year. And I wanted to reach out to different people, not necessarily politicians, but people that are running for an office or a position in the surrounding counties. We just featured Nathan Stinchcomb from Webster County as one. And we are sitting here with our very own, the legend, Mr. Jason Newton, who is our jailer at the moment.
Thank you for inviting me, Rick.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to have you, and I'm glad you found time to come on. So you're running for a second term.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that here in a minute, but kind of what I want to do is I want to get a background on you, right?
Okay.
That's one of the things that I noticed about a lot of candidates that run for positions. We know them,
Right.
but we don't know them, right? And there's never really been a platform for the candidates to kind of reach out on and say, "Hey, here I am." Now you can go to debates, and I don't even know if they have a lot of debates
Well,
anymore.
and they give you 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we're unlimited until we just get tired of talking
Right.
or we fall asleep. So,
Right.
so if you don't care, Jason, just go ahead and kind of give a background, where you're from, where you grew
Sure.
up, all that stuff.
I'm actually from Breckenridge County, which is originally from Breckenridge County, which is about 50 miles east of here. It's on the other side of Owensboro. I'm a farm boy. I grew up on a farm, 30 minutes from any town in any direction. Um, got out of high school, not sure what I wanted to do. Had an interest in law enforcement, but I wasn't really old enough. You know, you can't even work at a jail till you're 21.
Right.
And so I worked in a factory for a little while, and I was like, I do not want to do this for the rest of my life. You know, seeing people walk out of that factory that had been there for 30 years, you know, they're broken down. And so I decided to join the Navy. I thought the Navy will be so much different than anything I would ever experience, you know, in rural Kentucky. And it was. I was afraid if I joined the Army or something like that, I'd get stationed at Fort Knox or Fort Campbell.
Right.
My mom worked at Fort Knox. You
Oh,
know?
okay. Okay.
So I wanted to do something completely different. Had never even seen the ocean.
Oh, wow.
You know, I'm from way out in the country, so didn't really, you know, have much interest in college because nobody I knew, you know, had really been to college. Neither one of my parents had. They seemed very successful. You know, in hindsight, I realized my parents were largely absent during my childhood because they were working all the time.
Right.
You know, but went to the Navy, worked in radio. The last couple years I was in the Navy, they had what's called collateral duties, and a collateral duty is just something extra that you do, and it looks good on an evaluation, helps you get promoted. Well, my collateral duty is working in the ship's brig,
Okay.
which is just another word for a jail. That's
Right.
what the Navy calls a jail or a prison, and totally different than any civilian jail or prison. You know, they're not allowed to be on their bunks during certain hours and stuff like that. But it was interesting. Went to the Naval Corrections Academy while I was in. Got my degree in police administration. I have an associate's degree. Got that while I was in the military.
Wow.
Got out, came back to Kentucky, came back home. Still not real sure about what I wanted to do, and still had an interest in law enforcement. Applied to a few places there locally. Didn't hear anything about them. I thought the military would give me
A boost, kind of like a hand up.
boost.
Yeah.
The state police at the time either required either an associate's degree or military experience. Applied for the state police, and I was like 3 seconds. They had an obstacle course you had to do as part of the hiring process, and I think I was like 3 seconds off the pace, you know, to make the cut. So didn't make it to state police first year. Wound up, you know, I just shotgunned applications. I don't care who hires me, you know, I'll go anywhere. Get hired on the Marion County Sheriff's Department in Indiana.
Oh, wow.
And that's Indianapolis, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And at that time, they still had a patrol division. So did that for 4.5 years. Then in 2007, the sheriff's department merged with Indianapolis City to make Indianapolis Metro Police Department. So I had a choice. I could either work at a jail in Indiana or I could go be a police officer in downtown Indianapolis. I don't know about all that.
A little much for old country boy.
Right, for a country boy.
Yeah.
So, heck, I'll just go to the jail. You know, at that time, there was not really any difference in pay like it is now. People worked at jails made pretty much as much as police officers. Police officers didn't make anything.
Right.
I think a deputy sheriff at the time made around $20,000. You know, it was nothing.
Wow.
So went to the jail, and I was like, well, this is more like it. You know, nobody's pulling guns on you. You're not standing out in the rain and snow, trudging through snow and all this stuff. This is more, and I just enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. There's a lot of stuff in jail that's not fun,
Right.
the fights and stuff like that, but it just seemed to fit me better than patrol did. And I was kind of tired of patrol. Uh, for the first couple of years, it was really fun, chasing people, and, all that wild
All that
stuff.
adrenaline rushing.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you start realizing after you've done it for a while, hey, I just arrested this guy last month. This guy that I've just been in a fight with, that I had a fight with last month. So what am I doing? What am I
Right.
accomplishing? And my hat's off to people who do it. It just wasn't a good fit for me. I thought the jail was better. So when I moved back to Kentucky in 2007, I got hired out at Warren County Jail, down in Bowling Green, and I've been in jails ever since.
Wow. So what is something that you realized the difference from the first jail you worked at and then coming home, or closer to home to Warren County? Was there like a big difference in jails? And
They are both big jails. I think Bowling Green's probably 600 inmates.
okay.
In Marion County, the main jail up there is probably more like 1,200. And there's some pretty rough old boys up there.
Right, yeah.
Of course, there is in Bowling Green too, but I was glad to be back home, to be near my parents. Parents are getting older and stuff like that. So I was just glad to be back home.
Yeah.
And I really liked it a lot better than patrol. It just fit me better.
Yeah. So if the state police would have came back and said, "Hey, in Kentucky, you want to try it again," would you have changed your career path?
Yeah, I might have. That never happened, and I think about that a lot of time. What would have happened had I got hired for the state police?
Right.
Or, what if I'd stayed and worked in Indianapolis or whatever? How would my life be different today? And I really feel like a lot of my life has been timing and luck.
Okay.
I'm really at the apex of my career.
Right.
I don't think you could ask for better.
I don't think you could, yeah.
So, and I thought if I was at the sheriff's department, I'd probably be a sheriff lieutenant, something like that. But I think it really worked out for the better. It just shows God has a plan.
He does. And it's, you start out thinking this is what you want to do, or you start out in a career and you find yourself in something totally different than what, and I think it happens to a lot of people. And are there things that I wish I would have done different or worked? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But there's a reason for everything. Right. There's a reason where I am today. There's a reason where you are. So what brought you over to Union County area?
Oh,
How long
that's
have
an
you been over
interesting
here?
story.
Let's get into that.
I was actually dating an attorney. She worked at the public defender's office out of Henderson. And so as a result of that, I moved from Bowling Green to Henderson to be with her and worked at the jail in Henderson. I worked up there for probably 2.5 years. And good job, good jail, good people. But she told me, hey, you need to talk to the jailer of Union County. She needs some help, and it's complex. Just talk to her. So I did. I called Kathy Jo Smith, was the jailer at the time, and they had problems at the jail, and it had actually gotten to the point that the state had taken their state inmates away from them and was threatening to close the jail then, just because it was so out of compliance with state regulations. So they really needed somebody that had some experience and some training with jails. So I jumped on that, this little small 45 bed jail.
Right.
Love that. You if you work in a big jail, there's so much turnover that you don't even recognize people's faces. They can tell you, I'm Adam Smith when really they're Joe Smith.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
But this little jail, I was like, I really like your little jail. So I started working there. We got the jail in compliance with the state. Once I took on this project, we had no violations found in our next state inspection. So as a result of that, I got a promotion to chief deputy. Okay. I was chief deputy for 7 years before the jail closed.
So, and a lot of people, and we'll get into that. We'll let you explain that. A lot of people don't understand where the funding comes from for the jails, right? These little county jails.
Right.
And when you say that the state was going to pull our funding, pull the jail's funding,
Yes.
or pull the inmates, kind of
Right.
explain that. Walk us through,
Okay.
because I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, it's tax funded, it's the county pays for it, so on and so forth. So just walk
Right.
us through that process of what it takes to operate a jail, starting from where the funds come from.
It is robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'll say that up front. I mean, it's all tax dollars.
Right.
Theoretically, a county jail, the county is responsible for operating it by statute. But in Kentucky, county jails house Class D and Class C state inmates, and the state reimburses the county for holding those inmates. So you want to hold as many state inmates as you can because those are paying inmates.
Okay.
The county just has to eat the cost for, pretrial county inmates. So you want to keep as many state inmates as you can. And we've been doing that for Sean Elder became jailer in 2015, I believe. We basically just shipped all of our county inmates to Webster County and started housing state, just to try to keep
afloat.
afloat as long as we could. A lot of people don't realize that we had been housing Union County inmates in Webster County since like 2015, 2016, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So where did it go? What happened? How come the jail was never renovated? What happened with that?
It's really the jail. The jail was built in 1974, and it's not in great shape. That's not a problem. I could get a grant from Department of Agriculture to fix the building. That's not the problem. It's the fact that it's 45 beds. It's just too small to really be efficient. The state sets your staffing requirements. I have the same staffing requirements, when the jail was open, as a jail that houses 400 inmates. The staffing requirements the same.
Oh, okay.
So, obviously, okay, let's take Webster County, for example. They've got 200 beds. They've got the same number of deputies that we had to have when we were open. And they've got 200 beds. We had 45. So that's not very efficient.
Right.
And, deputy jailers don't make a lot of money
Right.
in Kentucky. But let's say you're paying a deputy jailer $30,000 a year, which is not a lot of money. But by the time you pay their retirement benefits and their health coverage and all that, you've got $60,000,
Right.
For one deputy. And the state imposed these these staffing requirements in an effort to close small jails. And they were successful. It worked.
Yeah.
The same year we closed, I think Monroe County closed like a year before that. There have been several that all closed altogether because of these staffing requirements.
And it seemed like it was like once one closed, like they just started.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right now, the state's pushing for a regional jail model. Judge Onan just talked about that at a recent CAECO made a presentation before the legislature. They're looking at a regional jail model. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But again, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's all tax dollars.
Right.
It just depends
So
on.
with that regional jail, like it's going to be located in one certain area, right? So how is the counties going to benefit from one regional jail?
Okay.
Because you're not going to be able to house those state inmates to get that money that was coming in before. Obviously, our jail's not open, and I'll let you explain how that works or whatever. So how is that going to work? Is it going to benefit, let's say that they put the regional jail in Madisonville just to say, is Union County going to see any benefits from that? Is Webster County going to see any benefits from that?
Okay. As I understand it, the way they're thinking, okay, there are right now about 70 jails in Kentucky. There are 120 counties, but there's only about 70 jails,
Wow.
71, something like that. The only jails in Kentucky that run into black have federal inmates. So the idea is to form these regional jail authorities, have regional jails with federal inmates to help offset the cost of operating a jail. So in theory, what that should do, that should lower the cost for counties to house their inmates, or at least stabilize the cost.
Right.
Because right now, the cost of like healthcare and well everything, food, everything has increased so much with inflation. I want to say the latest figures is that in the last 5 years, like healthcare has went up 52% for jails.
52%.
52%. You know, it's just an increasing bite out of these counties' budgets. So they're looking for some way to stop the hemorrhaging.
Right.
And, you know, regional jail might be the answer.
That's interesting. That I still don't understand how is that how it's gonna benefit our county? Are we gonna get like tax dollars from that, or
Well,
it's gonna eliminate us having to pay out? I guess
well,
maybe.
it would, in theory, lower what we have to pay,
Okay.
or at
Okay.
least stabilize
Okay.
what we
I
have
see.
to
Okay,
pay.
that's what you. Okay. Good.
Right now, we pay Webster County around $400,000 a year.
Wow.
You know, 4 to 5, depending on our population,
Right.
to house inmates for us. You know, people, oh my God, that's a lot of money. If we were still open, if we still had an open jail, it would be closer to, 1.75 million, or
So we basically cut our spending in half by having Webster
it
County do that.
has. It saved us, we think, around $750,000 a year to do that.
Wow.
And it's reduced our liability. There are a lot of advantages to it.
With that savings, where did that money, that extra savings go for what, like new equipment? Was there raises? Were you able to give raises, or how does that work?
It just it just stays in the county's general fund. They use it for roads or
Okay.
the park, anything that they've done. I do have to say that the fiscal court, since I've been in office, has given me everything I've asked for. And I try not to ask for much.
Right, right.
But like when I came into office, we had these old vehicles that you couldn't trust and were worn out.
Yeah.
They bought us new cars and stuff like that. And then, when they want to do something like start another road crew or something like that, I'll bend over backwards to do it. So we've got a really good relationship.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So your first term as jailer, what are some things that you really worked on from day one until now?
I just wanted to make sure that my staff was well trained. I'm actually the one that wrote the policy and procedure for the jail,
Oh wow, okay.
for a closed jail. And it's interesting. Judge Onan, it's been 3 or 4 years ago, emailed me and he said, "Hey, do you have a policy that we can send to CACO?" Because nobody else in Kentucky apparently had a closed jail policy and procedure manual. And I said, "Sure," and sent it over, and they adopted it for the state.
Oh wow.
They went through it and made sure everything was legal and
Right.
all that stuff, and adopted it for the state. So I was pretty proud of that. That I wrote that.
That's pretty big.
Yeah. And just making sure my deputies are well trained to keep us out of there are so many ways. I always tell people, if you want to wind up in jail yourself, go be a police officer or go work at a jail, because you'll wind up there if you're not careful. With civil rights stuff, all that's not like it was 30 years ago.
Right.
You can be in heavy lawsuits, wind up
They'll sue you for
destitute.
anything now. Yeah.
Right. And fairly risky unless you know what you're doing and you stick to your policies and the law. So I'm pretty proud that we've been able to do that. We've never had an incident. We've probably transported 4,000 or 5,000 inmates, during my term.
Yeah.
And we've never had an escape. We've never had lawsuits, anything like that. Especially when I go to a jailers conference and hear about these other counties that have closed jails and all the crazy stuff that's happened with them.
Yeah.
Like, I've got really good staff, and so I'm really happy with that. I'm proud of it.
So the closed jail system, can you explain to the audience how that works? What does Union County Jail, what is it used for now? How does that procedure work?
Okay, now, I hear people all the time, "Oh, why do we have a jailer?" Well, when people get arrested, in Union County, they don't just magically disappear. They still have to go to jail, and they still have to go through the court system and all that. So what me and my deputies do, I've got 3 deputies, 2 females, a male, and then myself, is we transport, the police bring them to the jail, we search them, we book them in, make sure it's a legal arrest, all the paperwork, checks paperwork, and then transport them to Webster County. The county is by statute responsible for transporting those inmates. So the question is, well, why didn't the sheriff's department do it? Well, they could, legally. The sheriff's department could do it. But would you rather pay that deputy $30 an hour to do it, or pay my guys $15 an hour to do it? And you still have your deputy here in the county to, come save you if somebody's breaking in your house or whatever.
Right.
So it's really, that's another cost savings, by having the jailer's office do the transports. We transport them back to court. We transported 12 inmates today for court, for circuit court. And then one thing I do personally is I go out and serve, like civil summonses and evictions and stuff like that, to just kind of help offset the cost. If we can serve 200 civil papers a year, that's $60 each, and it kind of help offset, the cost of the jail with excess fee collection.
Okay.
So, I think we've got a really good people. We've got a fiscal court that's been really good to us. And people ask me, are they going to build you another jail? I hope not.
Right.
It's really going good,
right,
the way it is.
But
so,
what do you think about that? Do you think they will build another jail, or with this regional proposal coming up, do you think that's just kind of wait and see what happens kind of thing?
For right now, it is. New jails are very expensive. We estimated, this was before COVID, before 2020, we estimated that a 150 bed jail would cost around $15 million. And that was pretty much the county's bonding capacity. After this post-COVID inflation, 25 million.
Yeah, at least.
And then your county's in debt for 30 years over that for a jail. Something that most people, the average taxpayer, doesn't even really care about. They don't care, what we do with them. They just, care about the crime.
Yeah.
And their money. So I wouldn't anticipate, at least in the short term, any thoughts on building a jail or anything. As far as regional jails, I think it'll probably be an existing facility, that they may add on to.
Do you think it'll be just a regular, like a county jail, or do you think one of the prisons, they'll expand on it, or?
I think it would be it could be Crittenden County, Webster County, Henderson County, just expand what they already have.
And Crittenden's got a pretty new jail, don't they?
They do. I want to say that was built in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
maybe it was open. And it's really clean, really nice down there.
Yeah.
And she does a great job. I know she's took some hits over the county subsidies and stuff like that. Hey, that's the jail business, and that's post-COVID inflation. It's stuff that she doesn't control. As a jailer, prices are going up. Prices are going up for everybody.
It is, on everything.
And I think they've lost some of their federal funding and stuff like that. That's not something she controls. She's not in Congress, so from what I can tell, and from any time I've been down there, she does a great job.
So the last I mean, obviously you're still currently in it. The election starts in May. Do you have anybody running against you right now?
I don't right now. They've still got till January 9th.
Do you foresee anybody popping up, or?
Not that I'm aware of, but.
I mean, usually you can hear talk of,
right. I haven't heard of anybody interested in running for it.
Yeah.
Really, there's only a few people in the county that never had anything to do with the jail, or
right.
Ever worked at the jail.
So, what are some requirements it takes to run for a jailer position?
It's not really any requirements. You just have to be a resident of the county, and I think you probably have to be, at least 21 for sure. I wouldn't think any older than that. A resident of the county for 1 or 2
Really?
years. It's just like sheriff. You know, anybody can run for sheriff. Just don't have a felony on your record and live in that county, and you can run for sheriff. You can,
Really?
run for anything
You
you
think
want.
there'd be a little more to it than that, you know? Because I mean,
Yeah.
both of those positions are a pretty big deal,
Well,
you know?
I think that's one thing that's changed statewide in the last 30 years. You know, when I was growing up in the 90s, you had people running for these positions that didn't know anything about it.
Right.
You know, people would run for sheriff and they had no experience. Well, I can do it. But the thing that's changed since that time is now you have all these lawsuits. And, that was a result of that. Having
Right.
people in those positions that didn't know what they were doing. The counties were paying out $25 million lawsuits for excessive force or some type of civil rights violation. So I think now, though, it's usually people that are experienced or in those positions.
Okay. So if you were to win this upcoming election, obviously, if you're running opposed, it's kind of a shoe in. But
Right.
we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket
Right.
because you never know. You
Yeah.
know, what's one thing you hope to see over your next term, if you're reelected, to happen?
One thing I would really like to do. We talked about this at the most recent jailers conference. Okay, most people who are in jail, 85 to 90% is what the Department of Justice estimates, are addicts. They're not, these horrible people. They have an addiction, and it causes them to, you know, lose their families. It causes them to lose their careers, and they all want the same thing. And one thing we've talked about at this jailers conference, and I'm trying to look in what we can do locally to help people break that cycle. And there's all kinds of ideas. I wish I knew the magic bullet, to
Right.
make somebody say, I don't want drugs anymore. So I don't know if it's partnering with community, with churches or what it could be, but to do something with opioid abatement money to help get these people away from drugs. And I will say there is I guess you could say a light at the end of the tunnel with like meth and heroin and fentanyl and some of that stuff. We're not seeing that with young people like millennials. It's almost like, the people that are being arrested for, let's say, possession of meth, they're all in their late 30s, 40s, 50s. We're not seeing young people. And to me, that's encouraging. And I think what's happened with that is millennials have seen the last couple of generations lose their families, not have any money, just have an addiction.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't want that. So hopefully it's getting better. And that's one thing I want to concentrate on in my next term is what can we offer locally, whether it be classes or counseling or whatever, to help break that cycle. And there's a lot of theories out there, how you do that. I wish I had an answer. What we've done in the past is we just put them in jail. It
Just
doesn't work. We've been putting people in jail for, since the 1980s over these drug offenses. The drugs haven't went away.
Mm-mm.
So obviously that's not working. Let's try something else. And another problem that you have when you do that is you fill your jails and prisons up with addicts. Then you don't have room to put people that do belong in jail.
So the serious criminals
Right.
kind of.
You see news articles every day about, this person had this violent criminal record, yet they were out and now they've killed somebody. Maybe this is the second person they killed because they were already let out when they killed somebody 10 years ago. So, it's interesting that we do that. We keep these addicts in jail, which doesn't work. And we let the real bad guys, and there are some bad people in jail,
Right.
and we let them back out. It's a
You know,
system
I've
that's,
never thought about it like that
yeah,
because just sitting here listening to you talk about that, there's so many people in jail for just having drugs on them and getting caught doing
right.
drugs that are serving these long sentences. for doing drugs, right? Obviously, it's wrong. It's
Right.
illegal. And I understand that.
Yep.
But they just sit in there and they serve their time, and nothing really. When they get out, they're gonna go right back to it
Right.
because they
Because
haven't
nothing's
learned
changed.
anything.
Right.
Do you think that?
And here's another thing about that. I say this all the time. I've had people during the course of my career, they've done life in prison over meth. Now they didn't go before a judge and the judge said, "All right, life." No,
Right.
the judge said 3 years. So they do their 3, they get out, get rearrested, do 2 more, get out, do 5 more. So really, they've spent their entire adult life
I mean,
in prison.
just that addiction alone is a life sentence for some
It
people.
is. It is.
I'm hoping to get a young man on here that kind of had a different type of addiction. He wasn't like on hard drugs, I don't believe, but kind of overcome some stuff and is like doing just phenomenal now. Just hearing those stories is what I'm hoping that somebody can kind of relate to and be like, if they
Absolutely.
can do it, I can do it.
And that's the thing, when I talk about when we have these classes or have this counseling, it doesn't need to be me teaching the class. They don't relate to me because I
Right.
haven't been through what they're going through. We need the success stories of the people that have been able to get off of it and what they did. And, it can be a number of things. It can be life skills. It can be they found God. It can be a lot of things that helped them get off of it. They don't need to hear it from me, though.
They
They
need
need
to
to hear it
from
from that guy.
somebody. Throughout your career in correctional facilities, what is one of your favorite success stories from maybe an inmate or somebody, or do you have any? I'm sure you probably have a lot. I mean,
Well,
hopefully you have a lot of success
I
stories.
love it when people walk up to me. I'll see them. I'll be out pumping gas, or I'll be in a store or in a restaurant, and they'll be like, "Hey, you remember me?" And most time, no,
Right.
but they do remember me, and they'll be, tell me their story. They got off of it. Some people, I haven't seen for years, so I know that they're telling the truth. They've got families, they're in church, so that's what really makes it. When it really makes my day when somebody tells me that. So in that case, it worked. You know, and
Right.
I'm not saying that it was because they were in jail.
Right.
They
Right.
might just, finally said, "Hey, I've had enough of this life. I'm losing my wife and losing custody of my kid. Whatever." It doesn't, mean that I did anything
Right.
necessarily. Uh, but I love hearing those stories, and really can't get enough of them, to be honest,
Yeah.
because it makes it worthwhile. You know,
Yeah. It kind of breaks up the monotony
it
and
does.
also knows that, do you ever talk to them, the inmates and stuff? You're like, hey, look, not really give them a speech or anything, but
Right.
just say, look, what can we do to make it better? Or,
Right.
anything like that. Do you ever have the
I,
opportunity to?
well, not so much now. When the jail was open,
Right.
I talk to them all the time. I'd be like, and trying to find. Well, here's what I couldn't figure out. I could understand an addiction. I smoke cigarettes, for example. Now, I'm not gonna, you know, lose custody over my kid over cigarettes. I'll quit.
Right. Right.
But I can understand addiction to some degree. But I would ask them, how'd you get started though? That's the part of it I don't understand. Like, what makes you take meth that first time? What does it? And it's a multitude of reasons I can't understand. But I haven't lived their lives either.
Right.
And I try, be very careful not to be judgmental on them. I've seen the best and the worst of humanity in the jails. Uh, the best of humanity. Here's an example. Several years ago, I think this is when I was working at Bowling Green, the police brought this old man in on a warrant for Fairdale Pier or something like that. Very elderly, not in great shape. This is back when inmates could still have cash, in the cells.
Okay.
And reason they stopped that is because they gamble with it and
Right.
fight
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So, but anyway, those guys were like, "Oh my gosh, they arrested you," and of course the police had to arrest him. He had a warrant,
Right.
but they brought him in. Those guys put the money together and paid his bond and let him out.
Oh, so the inmates put it together.
The inmates posted his bond. And I've seen a lot of times, bring somebody in, they've got an injury or they're elderly or something like that, and an inmate will give up their bottom bunk, that they had to wait 6 months to get,
Right.
will give it up. So that person, you know, everybody in jail is not bad.
Right.
There are some bad people in jail, but during my whole career, I've probably known 10, I thought would, oh my gosh, they're absolute psychopaths.
Right.
But the average person that's in jail is somebody that has an addiction and they've just messed up. That's all there is to it. That doesn't mean, just because they smoke meth doesn't mean they're also a liar or a thief or,
Right.
whatever. I trust them just as much as I trust anybody else.
Addiction is just, you know, the topping over of what,
Absolutely.
it doesn't absolutely, addiction, you've seen it more, probably more than I have, will ruin somebody, ruin a family, ruin
Absolutely.
their life. But deep down, have you ever had somebody just, I want to quit, but I can't,
Oh, yeah. All the time.
What do you do?
Nobody chooses that.
Right.
Nobody said, I want to grow up and be a meth addict and
Right.
spend most of my life in jail. We all want the same things as human beings. We want a successful life for ourselves and our family. They want that same thing too. Now, in some cases, they may not even know how to get that because they grew up in, very poor, broken households or whatever. They may not even know how to get that. And that's part of that life skills I'm talking about, how to do a job interview and stuff like that. And some do know how to do that, but this addiction, it is just so controlling. So if you could come up with a magic shot or whatever that you could give somebody and they just don't want drugs anymore,
Right.
wow, how many problems would you solve
Yeah.
if you could do that?
You talk about addiction starting, you know, I've seen people that grew up with everything,
Mm-hmm.
everything they could ever want.
Yes.
Phenomenal athletes in school, and get into their adult age or adult years or early adolescent, 18, 19, 20, 25, whatever, and make one mistake
Right.
to either transport something for somebody or use for the first time, knowing that they've got everything they could ever want right here at their hands, at their fingertips.
Right.
They've got scholarships to big name colleges,
Yes.
and they do that meth one time or they do that heroin one time. And I've always wondered, and I would love to get somebody in here that can say, this is why I did it for the first time. This is how it was presented to me.
Right.
This is why I took that bag of whatever across the state line. I want somebody in here that can tell me that, because it doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
Like you were saying, it just is so confusing, especially for those who have had everything.
Yes.
On the outside, looking, me looking in on their life,
Right.
has had everything they could ever ask for, right?
Right.
But was there something there that we couldn't see that led them to that? So that's like one of my, and I'm eager and anxious to get somebody in here that's going to be willing to talk about it, that's overcome addiction, or even if they're still on, if they're still addicted. I want them to sit in the chair and I want them to tell their story. I want people to understand where they're coming from, because not everybody's a bad person.
Right.
We all make mistakes, daily sometimes. So moving forward with that program, obviously it's going to take a lot of support. Do you think it's going to be like a tri-county program, or are you looking for something just in the county?
Really just in the county. I've seen it. I've seen you talk about it on your show a lot of times. Nobody comes together like Union County does.
Right.
I have never lived, and I've lived everywhere. I've never seen anybody that comes together like Union County. And I think that's the key. I think that's one of our big strengths in Union County, and we need to use that. And I think there are a lot of people who are willing to come out and help.
Absolutely.
So I think
I really think there's a lot of people that have overcome addiction that would step up and
absolutely.
be like, because I think they look for, and I'll use my sister as an example. My sister's been sober, clean for 2 years, I think it is, 2 or 3 years now, and she just celebrated her second year. I feel like she was 2 years clean, and I'd like to get her on to talk about it. I don't know if she's ready to do that or not, but she got caught up in that. You know, we weren't raised like that. That's not how we were raised. And then what led her to do this or whatever. But she graduated a program. She served. She was in jail for a long time, and she served, and she graduated a program, and now she was involved in teaching that program and helping people get off, get better, and understand addiction, if you will. And it's a struggle for her every day. I'll read some of her stuff she'll post, and it's a struggle for her.
Yeah.
And for her to continue to keep going, for anybody to keep going, it's just, and I feel that like as a jailer or your employees, it's also y'all's job, their job to be that positive force there at that moment. Because I know a lot of times when they get called up by law enforcement, the sheriff's office, city police officers, state troopers, whatever, they may be in a bad mood, or they may have got them doing 100 mile an hour down the road, and their adrenaline's pumping, and they're mad because it's reckless endangerment, whatever. So that interaction ain't always the best. But by the time they get to you guys, and some people want it and some people don't, right?
Right.
So you win this election if you're reelected. The program that's I think that's something that really I think that could probably happen. I don't think it would take a lot of money. I think it's just people stepping up and saying, "Hey, I'm willing to do this."
Right.
And again, we live in Union County, and I feel like I could probably send some people your way that would be willing to do that. Is there anything else you see in the future, or anything else you want to change? I know you do monthly reports.
Yes.
At the meetings there on, what is it, on Tuesdays? I can't even remember
I
what it
just
is now.
actually, I usually only go over there and talk to them like once or twice a year, in
Okay.
person.
Okay.
Now I send them, excuse me, I send them a monthly report,
Okay.
so they know everything that we're doing, and if any incidents happen, which is very rare, if you hit a deer,
Right.
so they'll know about that. But and usually I'll add a little comment at the bottom, our population's down this month or up or whatever. But just try to keep them informed so there's no surprises.
Right.
I don't ever want anybody calling one of my magistrates or calling Judge Onan, hey, what about, I heard that they did this or did. I don't want any them to be blindsided. I want them, to be very transparent and open about what we're doing. I'm proud of what we do.
Right.
So try to report to them.
I feel like just from the knowledge that I have of it, you've made a big difference in the jail since you've taken over. I mean, a lot of things it seems like has improved.
Yeah.
Even morale wise. I mean, what is your retainment rate for your employees? I feel like they've been there for a good click.
It's 100% since I've been in office.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
We always had a good retention rate at the jail, or at least since I was chief deputy, because my philosophy's always been, I might not be able to pay you a lot, but I can give you a really good place to work, and I can try to make you enjoy coming to work.
Yeah,
and that means a lot. I've often said you can either pay people a lot or you can treat them really good, but you can't not pay them anything and treat them bad too.
Right.
They're just not going to stay. Yeah. They're not going to put up with it. They don't have to. So I've always tried to make just a really good place to work. Try to help, if they need to be off to do whatever, that's fine. I'll cover it. I'll, personally cover it. I've spent all night at the jail.
Yeah.
There have been months where I pretty much lived at the jail because somebody needed to be off for, whatever. So just take really good care of your employees, and the retention will take care of itself.
Yeah, it will. And
even if you can't pay them.
That's why I asked, because I don't feel like that anybody has come or gone in several years there.
Yeah.
I mean, so they must be pretty happy. They must be really enjoying what they're doing or who they're working for.
We had a 75% retention rate when
That's
the jail was
good.
open.
Yeah.
And most jails, the average is 25%.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty impressive, really.
Yeah. So we just try to make it a really good place to work.
So what do they do when they're not transporting inmates?
They are on call.
Okay.
They're different than I am. They cover the deputies cover nights and weekends. I normally work days. So I go in, I'm at my office every day, and I'll serve papers or do administrative stuff. Uh, somebody's got to keep. We spend the money that we send to Webster County. Somebody's got to keep track of all that stuff.
Yeah.
Make sure we're not paying something we're not supposed to or whatever. So that's what I do. And then if somebody gets arrested, then I'll take them to jail, obviously. The deputies do nights and weekends, and they're on call. People, well, I'd like to have that job, on call. It don't pay a lot.
Oh.
Say that. So
They must have, people saying that must have never worked an on-call job.
well, but it doesn't pay very much.
Right.
That's the catch. I say, well, you don't get paid very much, but sometimes you might not have to do a lot either.
Right.
So, that's the big difference there. They probably make more money working at. I'm sure they'd make more money working at Walmart, but they'd have to get up and go to Walmart and stand there for 8 or 10 hours every
right.
long. Whereas I just have them on call.
Yeah.
Now there are times, on call can be rough.
Yeah, you get a good wild weekend.
Yeah, holiday weekend
Yeah.
or something like that. I mean, me and Mary Ann were just talking about the other night. We were on call together. I was working with her. Going on 23 hours without any sleep because they just keep arresting people. You can't control that.
Cops just keep doing their job. I
Yeah.
guess people just keep doing silly stuff. So you think addiction, drugs, is the biggest thing that you see come
Oh
through?
yeah, absolutely. And even if it's not, like, let's say for not possession of meth, it could be theft. It could be theft by deception, like cold checks or whatever.
Mhm.
But if you start looking at it real close, it's drug related because they didn't have money.
They're doing this to get the drugs.
Right. They spent, any cash they had on drugs. So, the Department of Justice estimates that 85-90% of all incarcerated people in the United States is drug related somehow.
Gotcha.
Even if it's not directly, it's related. And then the other, 10 to 15% are the real bad guys, the killers and rapists and all this stuff. If not for the drug problem, our jails would be empty.
Right.
We spend billions of dollars on it every year in the United States on incarcerating people because we've never found a way to deal with addiction. And addiction is as old as humanity itself. Before meth, it was cocaine, and before that, it was opium or morphine, whatever.
Right.
Addiction's always been around. And we live in a culture now, where people have a lot of disposable income and a lot of free time,
Mm-hmm.
and winds up being a problem. I just wish we could find, this magic potion to make it
Just
go away.
yeah.
It would take care of so many of our problems.
it would. It would, but I don't know. I don't see it happening. I think I feel like it's going to take a lot of funding,
Yeah.
a lot of expertise, if you will, in order to have those services available. But like you were saying, the program that you'd like to see started, I think, I don't know if there's any kind of regulations you would have to have, or and that maybe that's something we kind of dive into and look at when that time comes.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you want to say to your voters out there? Especially if you do for some reason, and I'm not just saying that just if nobody runs against you, but even though you may not have anybody, step up and run against you, but if you do, is there anything that you want to say to maybe persuade, if you will, for lack of better terms, to vote for you again? I mean, obviously, everything you've done in your first term is out there for everybody to see. They can request it and see it if they wanted to. And it's all been really, really positive. I know the courts, the magistrates just absolutely love the job that you're doing. So is there anything you want to just tell your voters or ask your voters?
Yeah,
or?
I'd say, I just stand on my record. We've had thousands and thousands of transports without problems. We do court, usually once or twice a week. We haven't had any incidents. Nobody's ever got hurt. We haven't gotten any lawsuits. And I just love being a part of this community and working for the people of Union County. I have people call me on, oh, I'm sorry to bother you. You never bother me when you call me. I work for you, like, okay, I said there's 120 counties in Kentucky. There's 120 jailers. On any given day, you can probably reach 20 of them.
Right.
They're out of pocket. You can't find them. Can't reach them. They won't talk to you. Anybody can call. I don't care for anybody having my phone number. I don't care for anybody calling me. If I can help you, I will. If it's legal, I'll try to help you.
Right.
I have people call me all the time. Hey, can you check and see, when I go back to court, or hey, could you check on this, or what do you think about this? And I welcome that. I love to interact with people. I love to talk about the jail, and I love being part of Union County and part of this community. To me, even though I'm not originally from here, to me this is home.
How long have you been in Union County now?
I have been here since 2010.
Okay.
So, right, it'll be 16 years next year.
Long enough, yeah.
And to me, it's home. So, love the people here. Love being a part of the community. And absolutely love how the people here come together.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Anything that happens. The storm that happened, this
Yeah.
past summer, anything like that. People come together.
Somebody
here.
gets sick. I mean, it just...
That's interesting. I was in I hadn't even lived here very long. This is probably 2011. I had a concussion, was in the hospital. Got out of the hospital, lived in Waverly, had people stop by that didn't even know me. I had no clue. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I was just absolutely blown away.
Yeah.
The way people do that here. So proud to be part of that. I wish all of America could be like that.
Right.
So, I'm here. I'm really accessible.
Yeah, and I know anytime I've ever reached out to you, it's like, unless you're like tied up busy, and normally if you are, you're like, hey, give me a minute, I'm doing this, and you always get back with me. So there it is with the elections in May, I guess, the primary.
Yeah. It'll be in May, and then the general elections in November.
Hopefully you don't have no competition.
Yeah.
But if you do, like I said, welcome them on the podcast as well to see their thoughts and see what they have to say and what they would like to do, the same as anybody else. We've got a few more politicians, if you will, candidates too. I like to call them candidates. I'm not a big politician fan.
Yeah, and
candidates is more of a,
especially locally.
Yeah.
I'm not a politician.
Yeah.
And I'm a registered Republican, but I don't do this whole adversary stuff with them. To me, we're all Americans. We all want the same things out of life. Yeah. And so I don't do the political stuff very much. I don't like getting my picture taken for picking up a bubblegum wrapper, putting it on Facebook, all that stuff. That's just not me.
Yeah.
I'm just try to be genuine as possible and do my job as best as possible. And people know that.
Yeah, I believe they do. I believe that for a fact. So, all right, man. Is there anything else you want to add to it before we wind this thing up?
Just glad to be here. I'm hoping the right person will see this.
Yeah.
Get some kind of big movie offer.
We can figure something out.
Maybe a sitcom.
A sitcom would probably be pretty good, especially if it turned out anything like Friends. I think they're making pretty good money there at the end. I think we probably figure it out. I know we got AI. We could probably write our own and do pretty good. I've been playing with it. I'll sit on the couch and
I have conversations with it.
I do too. I don't even want to get into that, man. I had AI chat one time just tell me to stop.
Yeah.
That you're done for the night is what it told me.
I had to tell them, I can't do any more today or something. Check back later or something like that.
Yeah, you done wore them out. Done wore them out. Well, usually I give us in the beginning, but I forgot. This is just a few gifts.
Well, thank you.
We just kind of got into it and started talking, but that's there's got some T-shirts in there, some stuff from Lids for Kids.
Well, thank you.
Shannon French does the Lids for Kids. They're out of Panama City.
Yeah.
He's done a few here in the county.
Yeah, I've heard of that before.
And I really appreciate him and the Fat Boy app, man. They've been good to me. So, yeah, usually I give that in the beginning, but we just kind of got into
Yeah.
conversation, and it happens every now and then. Sometimes I
Well,
completely
thank you very
forget.
much.
So, yeah, man. Well, thanks for taking your time to come out and get the word out that I'll have anybody on that wants to talk. Hopefully I'll get some more. I've got a few more people lined up for the candidacy thing here, the election, if you will. People kind of get excited about elections every
Yeah,
now and then.
they usually do. I was when you invited me to come on, I was like, because I watch your show all the
Well, thank
time.
you.
Like, that's gonna be hard for me to be interesting or anything compared to your guests. Or I watch it. I find it fascinating.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I've worked pretty hard doing what I'm doing. It's
Yeah.
I'm not tech savvy, so I'm one of these days I'll get to the point to where I can have somebody do all my
Right.
cameras, and I've got a switcher over there that'll run 4 cameras, and I
Yeah.
can't even get anybody to switch it. And I had it over here, and I don't like taking my time away from somebody, so I'm like, I'm just gonna leave
Right.
one camera up, and
Keep
we'll
track
roll
of
with
it.
it.
Yeah.
And that way, I don't have to worry about interrupting while I'm
Right.
talking or anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good time. I enjoy it. I think I've got to reach back out to some people that was going to come on, and we've kind of lost connection a little bit. A lot of local businesses, I want to
Yeah.
get them people back on, get them in here, and just all kinds of people.
Right.
It don't matter. Everybody's like, oh, you need to pick a niche and stay in it. I'm like, well,
No, I don't know
no,
about
I want to
that.
talk to everybody. I
Yeah.
like to talk to people.
I agree.
Everybody's got a story, and I get, yeah, I could do just a hunting podcast, or I can
Right.
do a political podcast, or I can do a crime podcast. I'm just gonna do it all, right? So
Right.
that way, if you come across it, you're like, oh, what does he got? Oh, he's got this. Oh, I like crime. Let's look
Yeah.
at this one, or I like whatever.
Right.
So I got something for everybody.
Speaking
So
of hunting and fishing, real quick story. People always ask me funny stories from the jail, and believe it or not, a lot of them involve fishing, surprisingly. Anyway, they brought this lady in, and it was a pretty heavy charge, like vehicular assault or something like it. Something crazy. I was like, well, what happened? So, what happened is her and her husband had decided to go fishing. He wanted to get minnows. She wanted to get night crawlers. So, over her protest, they wound up getting minnows and go fishing. So they're fishing, I guess it was down toward Uniontown somewhere, fishing off a bank, not catching anything. She starts turning rocks over and stuff like that, finding these night crawlers, cast out there catching fish. I told you we should have got night crawlers, starting in on him now. I told you we should have got night crawlers. That's why I wasn't catching them. So he's like, I'm tired of this. I'm leaving. Well, you ain't taking my truck. Well, you ain't taking my truck. You can go walk or something. So he calls somebody, goes up there and calls somebody to come pick him up. And when he's getting ready to get in the truck with him, here she comes in her truck trying to run over him. Almost killed him. So they arrested her, and I don't remember what happened with the case. They were married, so I imagine they got it resolved.
Yeah, over the night crawlers.
Over the night
minnows.
crawlers versus minnows.
Sometimes you just don't really have to put your foot down.
Right.
You can,
Right.
Wonder why they could have got like a half a dozen of each.
Yeah.
Maybe they just had enough money
Coulda
for
had
one or the other.
Could have compromised, but anyway, it's better. If your wife wants to do something, just do that.
Just give in.
Who cares?
Yeah. Well, Jason, I appreciate you coming, man. So until next time, this is Front Porch America. Y'all be good to each other.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Respect.